Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome to I don't know if this is going to be part of a series or not. I'm still working on the Chasing the Dragon series, but I've been thinking about this actually for a while, and it kind of ties into another thing I want to talk about later, maybe this week or not. But as you can see from the title of the video, along with the weird ass thumbnail. I notice a lot of my friends, or some of my friends at least, they're paring down their collections. They're like Squirrel. He gave me a huge box full of just a crazy amount of cool stuff that, while some of them, weren't what I hoped for, or weren't what I was looking for, I'm still hanging on to them. I might, pass them along to someone who I know is actually like, oh man, I want this or I want that, because they're going to use it. But they're like paring down their collection, knowing that they're not going to get to play every single game in their collection. Like myself, I've got 350, cruising up on 400 different RPGs in my collection. Some aren't really RPGs; they call them RPGs, like Dawn Patrol. That's not an RPG. You could try, but or Boot Hill First Edition, Boot Hill Third Edition. That's an RPG. Boot Hill First and Second, that's a miniature tabletop skirmish game at best. But like I said, a lot of my fellow gamers, they got these bookshelves full of games that, there's, unless they've got, signed some deal with the devil, so they're going to be living until 99. Truth of the matter is they're probably going to have a bunch of games on their shelves that are just going to collect dust. No matter how hard they try getting a group together to play like Boot Hill or Dawn Patrol, is probably not going to happen. It really isn't. And I wonder, how many are going to end up in landfills because nobody cares. There's a lot of games out there that I just don't see anybody. I mean, unless you use the internet, scour the internet far and wide, and find the 4 people who want to play that game on a particular agreed upon night through Discord or online, or some other way. The likelihood that they're all in the same state, city, and town, also pretty damn unlikely. So what do you do when you come across a game that you're like, I'm never ever going to play this? Do you off it? Do you give it away? Do you try to sell it on eBay? Or do you just toss it in the rubbish bin and forget you ever had it, or forget that you won't ever get to play it again, that kind of thing. Because I've been looking at a bunch of my games. I'm like, I'm never going to get to play that. There's just no way. And what do we do about it? What are you guys doing about it? Is there another place to look for online gamers besides throwing out the net on YouTube or maybe Rumble, because some of my videos go over there, or X or something like that? Is there another community that I'm unaware of? Or I know Uncle Adam had he was creating an app for people looking to play games, but I think those were mostly like miniature war game and skirmish games. Is there a resource out there for gamers who are looking for gamers to play these obscure games from the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, or even recently, that just didn't do so well, and now they're just collecting dust on a shelf, or the worst case happens and you check out, and your family's stuck with a huge garage or warehouse full of games and have no idea what to do with them, what they're worth. Because the truth of the matter, a lot of them are still worth quite a bit of money, if you can get it, of course. If you look around, though, like I do, I regularly go through eBay, and I literally search role-playing games, and I'll look at every listing and see if there's something that I'm looking for, or something I've never heard of. And like with the top 10 RPGs all my friends and I have been making, I heard about like about a dozen games I've never heard of, but wouldn't mind reading. you know, and I'm not really a PDF guy or the high seas guy where I'll go read something online. I tend to need it in my hands so I can, you know, relax and enjoy it instead of like, you know, craning to read it on my tablet or on my laptop when I would rather be using one of those devices for something else and just listen to, you know, use it to listen to music or something like that while I'm reading a book. What are you guys' ideas out there? What are your suggestions? Any comments on the idea that there's a game, you know, especially with like Dungeons and Dragons and some other games like, you know, I'm going to use Traveler as an example, you know, with Mongoose second edition and whatnot. Is the little black book, are those books obsolete now? Would you rather play the new version and just forget about the old ones and cash them in and use that money elsewhere? Or are you going to hang on to them? Is Mongoose better? I honestly think in some ways it actually is. But I know there's some purists out there that are like, nope, just going to play the black books, which, you know, I totally get it because there are, you know, some good differences and some old good differences that make each game have a valid argument why you should play this over the other. But does there come a point where you're like, I only need this one fantasy game going forward? DM James, is Hyboria, you know, is that one going to last you forever and you're done with your old books, or do you still keep the old books around because you may want to look up an obscure reference or rule or item or place or person or something like that in the lore that you might still be able to use, or are you just carrying around a whole bunch of books because you're as my wife would call you, a holder, meaning hoarder? Do you need an intervention like I am told I do? What's the solution? What's the answer? What are your suggestions, folks out there? Asking for a friend, not really for myself. I've got plans for each and every game. As you guys know, I'm going to be around forever, so I'm the one guy who's going to get to play all these games well into the next century. But for you mortals out there, what are you guys going to do? All kidding aside, I really do want to, you know, get some answers to these questions, especially going forward into the new year. Should I be, you know, paring them down and sticking to, you know, like one game for each genre? You know, I only need one sci-fi game. This one will be all I need. This is one fantasy game, all I need, until the next new shiny comes out, of course. Or is there some other solution that I'm completely missing? Leaving it up to you guys out there in TV land. Help a brother out. That's what I got for you this Monday. Something to think about, something to chew on as we move, you know, a little further into 2026. Hope you guys have a great week. I will see you guys twice tomorrow and once tonight for Barrows and Borderlands. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, have yourself a great week. Love you guys, and as always, happy trails.